Alright, hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video. And in this video, I'm actually going to be talking about how I even ended up taking the pharmacy technician program to begin with. It's a common question that I get asked by a lot of people. Before I get into the details of that, let's roll the intro. Honestly, one of the most common questions I get asked is how I ended up in the pharmacy technician program to begin with. Sorry if I still sound a little congested. I'm still dealing with whatever I was dealing with over the weekend. Probably a combination of allergies from getting into dust and maybe even a little bit of a cold after 4 months of my body saying, "Oh, we finally have some time to rest. Probably a good time to get sick now." But anyways, so if I sound a little bit funky still, that's a little bit why. I've still got a little bit of congestion in my throat and stuff. And at this point, I'm not sure which is which. Between my degree in biochemistry, how I ended up in pharmacy has a lot to do with the whole story of it, honestly. So I'm going to start with how I ended up taking biochemistry as a major. So what had happened was I originally went to the University of Saskatchewan because I was interested in the nutrition and dietetics program there. So they have a nutrition program that I thought I would be really interested in doing. So as a dietitian, you work kind of in the hospitals and you do like meal plans for different people and stuff like that. So I was set up for actually pre-pharmacy because the pre-pharmacy was a little bit more detailed than the pre-nutrition was. And then I did my first year. After first year, my average was meh. So it wasn't terrible, but I didn't feel like I was competitive enough for really anything professional at the university. So I started looking into the biomedical sciences because I had been set up in these learning communities that were focused on biomedical sciences. And so I looked at everything and thought biochemistry would be the most interesting. So it was kind of just, I really like this. I'm going to finish out my degree like this and we'll see where it leads. I felt like having a little bit of chemistry might lead me to something. So fast forward to my fourth year, in January, I started getting symptoms of what turned out to be IIH in about end of January. It was kind of slowly building throughout the middle of the semester. I finished my program, like I finished my degree, and at that point, I just was focused on we need to find out what's going on and get me better. Because of this, I really didn't have the opportunity to even look into jobs and wouldn't for another few years. So when I finished my degree, I was really, really sick. Like, it was really bad. I don't even remember much of convocation because of how sick I was. And a lot of my brain has blocked out that time because of how bad it actually was. Fast forward a couple of years and getting into remission. I've shared the whole journey with IIH on here, so if you guys are interested in that part of the story, that is where you can find that. I ended up getting a job at a grocery store here in the place that is my hometown. I did it at the time because I was wanting to see how far I could push myself. So I had just gotten into remission. My Aimovig I had been taking for quite a while at this point. I couldn't tell you how long, but it had been quite a while at this point. So I was like, I'd really like to see exactly what this medication will allow me to do. So I got a job as a cashier. And it took me a while to find work, honestly. Like, places either just weren't calling you back or, all of that struggle that comes with finding employment, especially after a long gap in your resume. So I just kind of applied for everything and ended up getting something at one of the grocery stores. It was a cashier position. I had been doing the cashier position for about 8-9 months, and then a position opened up in the same store, but in the pharmacy. Now, at the time, I actually thought it was stocking shelves in the front of the pharmacy. But it turned out it was doing a lot of stuff actually behind the counter. So Canada has kind of three positions that you can get into being in community pharmacy. And I mean, there are that way too in other areas, but you generally don't find pharmacy assistants in the hospital. That is starting to change a little bit now. But for the most part, pharmacy assistant is really, really prevalent in community pharmacy. This was like kind of a clerk slash assistant type of position. So I would be doing both kind of areas and all of that. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. This is where I fell in love with the pharmacy. So I had been doing this for over a year before I decided. I had been doing it for about a year. I then went on my meditation retreat for 2023, and something shifted massively during that retreat. I'll never be able to fully pinpoint what it was, but it was the start of whatever this awakening. It was a part of the permanent shift of awakening where you kind of, feel everything as if it's in a flow state. And it was the start of, I wouldn't even say the start of the shadow work. The shadow work had been going on for quite a while, but even before then. But this was like the first permanent shift. And it's really hard to explain. And I don't really talk about this much. But during that retreat, something came over me that was like, this might be my last retreat for a while. And I really think it might be time to go to school. So I had originally, about a month later, I did book the next year's retreat. I did sit on it for a couple months because it's really not a good idea to make really big decisions like that when you are just out of silence. You kind of feel like you can make any decision you want when you're just out of silence like that, but it's not usually the best of ideas. It was about end of January. It was about the same time. I just sat during my meditation, was like, I really think it's time for me to pursue this pharmacy technician thing. At least try it. And at least giving myself, the opportunity to do it while I can. Now, I actually thought, because of the time that I was applying to the program, which was February of 24, now I gotta remember all these dates, that I would probably be put on a wait list and probably wouldn't be able to start it until the following academic year, because so the way that they worked the program is you started in fall of every year. So there was no start time in January, it was only the fall. So I was like, okay, if I get in right away, that's perfect. Another year closer to getting to that final end goal if I make it through. But if I don't, I know that I'm in the right spot. So I get to go on another meditation retreat next year and I'll be very, very happy about it. So there was really no, like, I'm going to regret this no matter what. Like, it was really of, if it's time to do it now, it'll happen. If it's not, then it won't. I applied. I actually had to do a typing test as part of the pharmacy technician application. And within less than an hour, I had a seat in the program. And I'm just like, you know what? If this isn't a sign that it's time for this, then I don't think anything is. And so that's how I ended up actually taking the program. What did I really enjoy about being a pharmacy assistant that led me to doing the technician? And why I chose to actually go to school for this. So number one, to be a technician, you do have to complete an accredited program. That is a requirement. It makes you eligible to be able to write the examinations you need to be able to become a registered technician. And that is what I'll be showing you from here on out once I actually start that process. In the program, when you look at SAS Polytech, it says that it's an intensive 2-year program. When I had my orientation, and found out about the math stuff, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I don't think it would be fair to myself not to give it my best effort. And to be sitting here now is quite a feat in that way. But that's also a huge accomplishment in another way, that nobody who I went to school with, maybe a handful of people that I've told, definitely none of the instructors know this. It feels like a bit of a victory at the same time against the chronic illness, because I really didn't know if it was possible for me to do this. I didn't know if my body would hold up to doing a program like this. And I can purely thank the AIMAVIG for being in this position in the first place. And it really, really helped me through the last 4 months in particular when things shifted from online to in person. I don't have any sponsorship with AIMAVIG or anything like that, but I would never be hesitant to share my story with it because it has given me as close to a normal life as I possibly can ask for. Don't kid yourself, there's still challenges with fatigue. And, I do find occasionally where I bump up against my limitations, but, knowing and having that deep sense with my body, I'm able to figure that out and, determine where that is. And it's such a huge part of this whole thing is just being able to live as close to a normal life as possible. I mean, like I said, there's still restrictions. You still got to find where those limitations are. And it definitely pushed me, especially the last month. I would say my community rotation wasn't quite as bad, but because of the timing. So I was used to getting up at, 7 o'clock to be somewhere by 9. That was very easy for me to do because I'd been doing that for 2 years. When you're getting up at 5:30, having to be somewhere by 7:30, it's a little bit different of a story. Finding where these boundaries do lie only happens by testing them out really too. So it's a big part of it, honestly. And, I know where those limitations are and all of that. And I just got to remember to respect those limitations, even though it feels like, oh, I'm doing, perfectly fine. If I push myself just a little bit more, I might end up finding where that limitation actually is. So I think that's also really important too, that you you do need to respect where those limitations are. And I'm just thankful to have, such a wide range now compared to what it used to be. I don't know if that's been a little bit of exposure through the last few years of working every day or not every, like working a 5-day work week, basically. It's just been nice to be able to have somewhat of a normal life and be very close again to gaining my independence back, which was a huge part of the grieving process when I was diagnosed with IIH to begin with. I really didn't think that I would get my independence back. I really thought it was the end of it, and then I'd be relying on people from here on out, for the foreseeable future. And all I've really wanted in life is a satisfying career. And to be at this position is a really big deal. I really do feel like walking across the stage in a way has been a bit of a, slap against the chronic illness going, you're not going to hold me down, kind of deal. So it is a big deal, even though I may seem like still kind of in shock about the whole thing. Like it's been a heck of a journey. Like this program has been way more challenging in so many ways compared to my biochem degree. And it's because of the stress of these 100% must pass exams. I've never felt a stress like that in my life. And probably the only thing that will happen is that I would feel the same way when I come up against my PBCs in September. There's, I think, a lot of people that get into the pharmacy technician program because they have experience as an assistant. But equally as interesting is there's a lot of people who choose it right out of school, whether they have a really strong foundation in math, and that's one of the things that they kind of point you towards if you do. Now, I will say that is 100% math, but the thing is the math is fairly basic, but because it's basic, that's why you can get a little complacent with it. And I've shared a little bit of the math with you guys as I've gone through this. It's not exactly, given to us at all. So to be able to get 100% on these exams, they make it doable, but not completely, stress free. That's for sure. And, you might be dealing with something in practice where it's not straightforward. So I think that's really important too. I don't know, guys. I think that might be everything that I want to talk about in this video. It's kind of crazy to find out how you end up in a particular situation. So this is actually why I have a biochem degree. So I was going in a certain direction, and then got sick and then tried to figure out which direction was best for me after that point, and I ended up in this position. So the interesting thing is that the biochemistry degree did help me quite a bit during my farm tech diploma. So I was pulling from almost all of the different classes that I took, including my electives. So that's honestly amazing. Just because you might not end up in exactly this thing that you want to do or think you might want to do, it doesn't mean that what you've been doing up until that point is completely useless. So yeah, I'm really honestly quite happy with the way things have turned out, and I'm hoping to continue to be able to learn and grow, especially in this career field that is essentially basically just over 10 years old and continuing to evolve every year and all of that. I'm really excited for it. It's gonna be still a lot of work because, like I said, I'm only done the first step, and now all of the stress of the exams and, certifications coming up is gonna be a huge part of it. But I feel like I'm definitely ready for this. I mean, I'm scared, terrified too. Don't kid yourself. It's nerve-wracking, but I feel like I can't be any better prepared than what I am now. And that I said this during the graduation video, but I feel like practicum did show me just how much that we've learned over the last 2 years. Like, that was really quite crazy, honestly. Like, it's just like, oh, wow, I'm able to answer all of these questions now. If you're interested in seeing this journey as it continues to unfold, please do subscribe and hit the like button. And you click the notification bell. Sometimes it might not be consistent with content because I'm very specific about what I'm probably going to be showing now, not only for professional reasons, but just to show, I think, what's the most important stuff. And like I said, I don't really know what order everything is going to be in from here on out. So we'll have to figure that out once I get started. Right now, I'm just really enjoying my time off and my time as a break because I definitely needed it. This was the right decision. I knew it was when I was kind of figuring out when I wanted to start work and all of that after I graduated. I'm just like, a week or two in between finishing and starting at a new place would be great. Not only did I have a feeling that I would probably have to move in that period of time, but it's just to have that reset before you go into something completely new, I think is a huge advantage. Anyways, thanks for joining me for this one, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Bye for now, everyone.